Hello and welcome to today's student CPD session, the topic of which is perfectionism, and this is one that I have found particularly difficult to record, to write, to go through, because I have to admit, and it's almost like that moment in therapy, isn't it, where you have to admit it. The first step to admitting it is the first step to a solution, but I have had a problem with perfectionism. It is an issue. So I want to go through today some ideas around perfectionism and some ways to hopefully help you overcome it. Although, again, it would seem I still have a long way to go on this journey myself. Let's get to grips with what we're dealing with here. Perfect. The meaning of the word is to have all the required or desirable elements, qualities, characteristics as good as it is possible to be. Now that is a statement that I want to keep coming back to. As good as it is possible to be. If you could, and this can be your first task for today, write down the definition of perfect as good as it is possible to be. I've said it 3 times now, so you'll understand the significance. Let's move on then. The next one is perfectionism. Perfectionism is the refusal to accept any standard short of what is perfect. So not allowing it to deviate from a standard that you have in mind. Let's just quickly review. As good as it is possible to be. When we're talking about perfectionism here, this is a habit, this is a mindset, it is not an illness. And be really careful here because it's often bandied around. The expression, I have OCD, I hear far too often, and the chances are you don't. OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder and is something that requires a lot of your time and attention and medical assistance. So when you have things that you like done in a certain way, that's not OCD, that's your preference. When you have things handed in and you're uncomfortable because you know it's not as good as it could have been, there's that expression again, that's not OCD. So I wanted to clarify that at the outset for today, that you're not dealing with OCD in this video. I'm certainly not qualified to do so. What we're looking at is perfectionism, and where we've become precious over what we are doing and how we are doing it, and that idea of refusal. So this is quite an abstract idea to get your head around, and either you're familiar with it or maybe you're not. And I would argue that the perfectionists, those of you that desire for things to be perfect, are acutely aware of perfectionism. Those of you that this doesn't affect, I'm slightly jealous because I imagine things become much, much easier. But let's move on. I'm just going to give you a second to have a look at this toy. It absolutely irritated me when I saw this for a number of different reasons. But the main and biggest one is this. What is that? Why? Why would you need that to exist? Why is everything else the correct way up, and no matter which way you twist it round on its axle, the zebra is always upside down, and it infuriates me. And then equally, why are the numbers 1 through 4 blue and the numbers 5 through 10 purple? Why are they not all just the same colour? If you're making the distinction between the letters and the numbers, why would you make the distinction between numbers 1 through 4 and then 5 through 10? That really bugs me. And that's the thing, it bugs me. But it's not physically painful, and I don't have an aversion to it. I can't not touch at it. It's just irritating. Let's show you another one. And there are tons of these on the net. You could spend ages doing it, but I'm very aware of copyright, so this is a picture of one that I have at home. As a parent, I've had to really struggle because, oh my goodness, we were playing a game where we were drawing a monster, and you roll a dice and you attribute a character or feature to your monster accordingly. And as much as I wanted to play the game, I also wanted to spend some time neatening up my image. So obviously the one on the right is mine and the one on the left, or maybe not obviously, is my son's. Now, he has no problem with his monster. He thinks it's brilliant. And I love him for that. And I love his monster because it's his creation. So I'm not going to critique his. I will, however, critique mine. It infuriates me that there's not a third eye over here. And why is there not another tuft of hair on this side? And when I was colouring it in, we had to change colours. And I did cheat. At the end, I went back and I made this more balanced. I made it more aesthetically pleasing, which goes to show some way of why I have this idea that we need to delve into perfectionism. When you're under an increased amount of pressure and when you're dealing with a variety of deadlines, you have to go back to that original understanding that I showed you, as good as it is possible to be. This drawing of the monster is as good as it is possible to be, because in the realms of that, in the commands of the task, that was what I was able to draw. Now, given different commands or free reign even, then it would have been better. Of course it would have. I would have spent much more time. I would have edited it. I would have changed it. But in that instant, in that moment, doing what I was supposed to do, it is as good as it is possible to be. Therefore, by dictionary definition, it is perfect. If you consider that in terms of your study, what can you achieve? And this is why your revision timelines, reading the question, the mark scheme, all of these videos work in a complementary fashion. Because knowing the constraints of any scenario helps you to realise that what you can produce is perfect under those conditions. For English literature, you are going to be marked, or you will be marked, according to your ability to spell accurately. But as an examiner, I'm told that I have to pay attention to the fact that you are writing under time conditions and under exam stress. So although I can give you marks accordingly for your academic register, and the better your academic register and control of language, the higher the marks you're going to be. But I have to understand that in the conditions that you are working in, it is going to have a limit. Is it as good as it is possible to be under those circumstances? And that's the measuring stick. If you were to change your environment, if you had been given 3 weeks to write a response to an exam, if you could do it in your pyjamas when you're comfortable at the time of day that suits you, would it be better? Of course it would be better. But in the circumstances, is it as good as it can be? How many times have I said that expression now? And that's something that you really have to grasp hold of. The last slide I'm going to show you is the word enough. Sometimes it's good enough. Sometimes what you've done is good enough. And actually, it's still perfect, because under the circumstances, in the condition that you are working, is it as good as it can be? If the answer to that is yes, then you're able to maintain your high expectations, your high measures of value for yourself without beating yourself up at the same time. What I would like you to think about for your task for today is an activity. It can be anything from eating a sandwich to brushing your teeth. I don't mind. I would like you to put that activity in 3 different scenarios. So, for example, brushing your teeth when you've just woken up, you're blurry-eyed, and you've got to be out in 2 minutes. How successful is that? The fact that you get toothpaste on your brush and it enters your mouth for 30 seconds is good enough. Is it perfect? In those circumstances, you still brushing your teeth is perfect. Change the circumstances. Keep the activity the same. You have now got up and you're still blurry-eyed. However, you've got time. So you spend more time cleaning your teeth. You brush your teeth, you use mouthwash, you use dental floss. Is it perfect? Yes, of course it is. Because in those conditions, you see the conditions have changed. You've still achieved the same goal. Your teeth are still clean. One, of course, is better than the other, but the circumstances were different. And that's where I want you to focus your time. This works really well, as I've mentioned, in terms of time management. Because, and again, in priorities, if you are able to prioritize tasks where they need to be, you are able to understand and give yourself the better set of circumstances to produce the quality of work that you're wanting to do. But it has to be proportionate. Otherwise, you're going to start delving into a completely different problem, which is going to be being overwhelmed, burnt out, and stressed. I hope that's been useful to you today, and I would really like for you to consider those different activities and how the different sets of circumstances influence them, because that will be a motivator in terms of your planning, your focus, and your assigning different elements of time to different tasks.